I was actually just going to commend, Jaylen's performance tonight, because we get a lot of shit on this show for not, I guess, bringing up Jaylen sometimes when, he puts together good performances. And you give him his due. I mean, I thought he really stepped up tonight. And that's after, and this is another thing, Jaylen Brown said that thing about the media. He might be talking about maybe the national media, because over the last 24 hours, we heard from Shaq, we heard from Dwayne Wade, we heard from Kendrick Perkins, all calling out these guys, in a very public,
no heart, no identity, all of it.
All those things. And, maybe that's what he's referring to. But I thought that, I thought Jaylen Brown showed that, maybe that did get to him in a way where they're thinking about it.
Here's the thing about Jaylen, though.
Jaylen continued. I just want to read one more quote before you go.
Okay.
More on this topic. He said he met with Jayson Tatum before the game, after that Sixers loss. We almost had to just forget about everything. Let's come out, play basketball, be aggressive, be the best version of ourselves. There you go, Sherrod.
You didn't say that. Shut up.
I swear. I'm reading it right out of the friggin' best version of ourselves.
You know what? You know what that is actually? They do listen to Brad Stevens. Look at that. Look at that. They got his lingo down. That's good.
Sherrod,
that's on the whiteboard. That's on the whiteboard when you walk in the locker room.
But they're hearing it, right? So
it's like pace and space, way back when.
Right. And I guess the thing about Jaylen is that the reason why most of us don't talk as much about him this year is he's been so ridiculously consistently good that him going out and getting 27, 28 points, whether they win or lose, he kind of does that these days. But again, when they win, you recognize, wow, he scored a lot of points down the stretch. And when they lose, you're looking at his box score, and it's kind of the same. And so Jaylen, it's just, I don't think he sees it that way, but it's a sign of respect when you're going out there getting 26, 27 points, and it's not that big a deal. You've got to the point where you become that reliable statistically to your team. Whereas if, let's say, Tristan Thompson goes out and gets 18 and 9, we're talking a hell of a lot about Tristan Thompson, because that's a big deal.
Can I say one? Go ahead, Josue. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say real quick. I think that's true. That's a good point, Sherrod. But I also feel like there's a lot of times where win or lose, I mean, his performances, they kind of fly under the radar, right? It's like, Kemba had a cold night if they lost. What's going on there? Or Tatum didn't get enough touches down the stretch, And for the most part, and Jaylen's been doing this for a couple seasons now, he's been the most efficient guy out there, and even when his touches, throughout the last couple of years, even though as they have increased, his efficiency hasn't changed. He's still hovering around 50% from the floor, not too far from from the arc from that percentage. So, I mean, I'm with you in a sense, but I feel like this is sort of that game where people will talk more. Okay, you see how Jaylen stepped up big, there. And the other night he had 5 3-pointers. We barely talked about it. I think Jaylen deserves a little more credit sometimes, and tonight was a perfect example of that.
He's the MVP of this team this year, Jaylen Brown. He is their MVP.
Can I say one thing?
But they're a 500 team.
No, but that's the point. And so
every team is MVP. Come on, Jimmy.
But no, it's going back to fine. Performance is fine, okay? And absolutely he's been good and right. He is the start to his season, he was clearly their best player. Then whether it's knees or just kind of came back down to earth with the mid-range stuff, which was, like I said, unsustainably hot clip earlier in the year. But this is my beef when it comes to complaining about negativity in the media. You're a team with 2 superstar players that's below 500 that just got above 500. Absolutely deserve every bit of criticism being thrown your way. You are not beyond reproach. I know it's roster stuff too, and it's not on Tatum and Brown, but the point is you have to be better. Problem. You have to be better. You have to make people better. And even if not, you just have to sit there and say, they're right. We're a 500 freaking team, and that's unacceptable.
Well, they've been saying that all year, and they've been taking responsibility.
But then don't say negativity and the negativity. That's not negativity. It's honesty, okay?
It's Rick Pitino stuff.
It's not negativity. Negativity is when you take a team that's 15 games over 500, poke holes in them, and try to make an issue out of nothing. This is honesty. The honesty is they've been dreadful. They've been really bad and inconsistent most of the year. They cannot beat good teams, and that's a fact of the matter at this point.
That's not true at all.
It's actually
what's not
absolutely 100% true. There's
I think what's frustrating these guys I think what's frustrating these guys, especially locally, is this notion that it's an all-out failure because they've slipped up a little bit this year and they've gone through the COVID stuff that we've talked about and, had losses and had inconsistency and, of course, a massive loss in Hayward. Like, there's a ton of context here that hasn't been taken into approach, and it's creeped up to the top where people are wondering, can Tatum and Brown play together? Are they selfish? Are they good enough to lead this team? When these two guys, I keep saying it all year, have proven it in past years. They've taken this team deep into the playoffs. They've made themselves better passers, and they're the ones getting the blame for largely what's been issues with rest of the roster. Like, again, as Sherrod said,
who got the blame for Philly last year? Who got the blame? Who got the blame for Philly last year?
But they were legitimately bad in a normal year.
Who got the blame? Who got the blame? The side guys or Embiid and Simmons and discussions about whether they could play together. The stars get the blame. I'm sorry. That's what happens.
You can't have it both ways. You can't get the praise when everything is great and be absolved of blame when things don't. It goes both ways. This team has been to conference finals 3 of the last 4 years, in large part because of what Tatum and Brown have been able to do. They deserve that credit. This team is a 500 squad. Guess what? The same guys who kind of got you to the finals 3 of the last 4 years, they are also part of what's not working well right now. You can't absolve them totally from that. Are they the ones to blame? Absolutely not. Are they part of what needs to get better? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, so when you hear that criticism, you should say they're right. Right now, we're not playing that well. We could be better. Jayson Tatum turned the ball over 8 freaking times tonight. Last night, he was pouting and sulking and shrugging his shoulders. That's why he drew criticism. If you don't want criticism, don't do that or own it, but I hate the whole the negativity is getting us down. You know what doesn't get you down? Playing better. Then there will be no negativity. People will sing your praises. This town, people friggin' love people can't wait to say awesome things about these guys, the young stars. Right. There's a favorable outlook of this team. Most people want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Nobody wants to say negative things.
Yeah, but this goes back to what we were talking about yesterday.
John, though, they haven't seen this side of Boston, right? I mean, they have to understand with the Kyrie
people want to love them. Yeah,
but they don't understand that it goes both ways. Like when this city is fed up, or when these fans get to a certain point where they're like, wait a minute, when is this team going to get out of that 500 hole? And I think that's when they reach that point. Against that Philadelphia series, and it's not just the media; it's the fans. I think the fact that it's crossed over to the national media, I think maybe that struck a chord.
They got booed in their first game with fans.
I mean, the game was on national TV against Philly. Obviously they like to show out. Any star does, any team does, and that's when they got a lot of criticism last night.
And I understand it coming from Brown because he's been the better player of the 2 stars on this team this year.
I would agree.
He's the one who gets traded in every scenario that gets thrown around out there. So that's got to be frustrating to hear. And this is what we talked about last night. Who can you go out there and get for Brown? Which is so ridiculous because I think this team does have its core. Like, these 2 guys have proven that they can be 2 of the best players on a team. Everything around them is what's been a mess this year. Smart, his absence. Kemba, his absence. And then, of course, the bench and all the ancillary pieces at center and everything else. This has been a real – again, you can look at all this stuff and say, excuses. But I think there's been so much going on around this team this year that it really is legit excuses. So again, this doesn't absolve them. This doesn't.
Have those 2 been great leaders? Those 2 all-stars?
I think they've tried their ass
off. Do they make their teammates better?
You didn't answer the question though. See, you can't even say it with vigor.
No, they haven't done a perfect job, and we've criticized them numerous times throughout this year. Tatum in particular.
Preach like that, you can't even,
Well, you're not allowed to criticize them, apparently, Bobby. You just have to say all you're allowed to say about Tatum and Brown is they're 2 young stars who are going to continue to get better and have yet to reach their ceiling, and they can't do everything. But I mean, if that's all you want to say, fine, then that's all you can say. But ultimately, you're looking at these 2 leaders of a team, whether they're still young or they're going to become better leaders, that at this moment are leading a team to a 500 record. And you would think, based off of their talents alone, they should be at least a little better,
look
even
around
given all the circumstances.
Why isn't Jimmy Butler?
Okay, let me ask Bobby this though. Okay, you talk about the other pieces. Do they need to look for a leader? Am I missing something, or do they still need to develop into leaders? So you can finally, people can feel confident to say these 2 are good leaders or great leaders, even.
No, I think that's what you do. You build around them. You bring in veterans. You don't have a bench that's all draft picks and guys who can't supplement the leadership that these two can provide. Because again, at the end of the day, they're 22 and 23, and you have guys who are even younger, or in many cases just less experienced, older but less experienced on the bench.
That's what Rod said, man.
How's Rob going to be a leader? How's Rob going to be a leader?
They can't. But see, you can't have it both ways. It can't be, oh no, they don't have enough help because and then it's also
it's not about help.
They're too young. They're too young. Wait a minute. They're the same ones that went to the conference finals last 2 times, right? 2 out of 3 years, right? I mean, which one is it? Or is it always going to be, oh, it's the other pieces that are missing until they reach what, 25?
Well, it's not just about that either. It's the year in general too, the COVID year, and I don't think we emphasize that enough. I keep saying this to you guys, and you don't listen. Is anyone around the NBA?
Bobby, I think that's a big part of it as well. But I think you're giving these guys a pass. These two.
No, but I just want to make a comparison. Because is anyone in Miami, and I know it's a different market, different expectations, but the Heat just went to the NBA. The Heat just went to the NBA. I know, but again, if we're just looking at it as analysts of this league, shouldn't the Heat be looked at too and said, massive disappointment? This team just went to the finals and they're struggling to avoid the play-in.
Jimmy,
no one says that about the Heat.
You know why? Because they shouldn't have got to the NBA Finals last year.
Bobby,
that's why no one is coming down on them.
Bobby,
they should have been there last year.
You don't think they overachieved last year?
And you know why.
This is so easy. This is such an easy thing. Let's just put it this way. If Tatum and Brown all of a sudden start playing better, involving their teammates more, and their record soars, are we going to sit here and say Tatum and Brown have done a better job and that's why they're winning? Are we going to say that? The answer is of course we are, which means if they're not doing it now, you can say they need to do more of that. If they are going to reach a next level, it's going to be because of these guys. And when they do it, we will heap praise upon them. But since they're not doing it, we will not do that. Why is this difficult to understand? If they can get better, when they get better, we'll say so.
And they are getting better. I mean, they are getting better.
They are.
But it's not translating in what you know and I know matters most around here, and that's winning games. Right. That's why the last few years they have had just an amazing amount of praise heaped on them because they've been very successful. You look at Jayson Tatum. Has gotten a 5,000-point score faster than anyone in this storied franchise's history. So he's playing at an elite level. And Jaylen Brown, again, coming off his first All-Star game, the best, most consistent player on this team. So the issue to me isn't whether they can play or whether they can be good players. It always comes back to winning. And Bobby, I know there's a ton of factors that are legit that have factored in this team not being as successful as they are. But you know what? That doesn't matter. It matters what happens when that final horn goes off, who has more points. More times than not, it hasn't been the Boston Celtics. That is what people care about. They're not going to get consumed by the fact that this team has been ravaged by the COVID, unlike any other team in the NBA. I get that. That's a big part of what the problem is this year. There's no doubt about that. But it's still, that doesn't, as long as you can put bodies out there on the court, you play to win. And when you don't, you're called out for that.
And real quick, sometimes it's not even the result. It's the way that they play. Sometimes it's the emotion that they show or that they don't show.
We've seen this team get a standing ovation after their season ends at home in the playoffs. Where does that happen?
Right.
So it's not.
I think a lot of. I mean, listen, the record's the record, and we know all the things that have gone into it. But for me, at least, what I like to look at body language out there. I like to look at signs of leadership. I like to look at how the team is responding to adversity and, how it's, responding to bad losses. And I think we can all agree that, and I think even Brad Stevens has even said that, like, they haven't dealt well with adversity this season. And that starts at the top with your best players, your leaders of the team.
And again, there's
it's not questioning their talent. It's more questioning whether their ability to lead.
That hero ball, not involving other teammates, style of play, all of these things, like these are all reasonable criticisms that even like kind of fair weather Celtics media is heaping on the team.
There's a difference between reasonable criticisms and do they need to trade one of these guys?
It's not
work? And what were Shaq and the like saying last night? This notion of selfishness and identity and all that's taking it too far.
Well, part of the quote was I identity was really actually more a matter of what are they? What are the Celtics? Are they a
Shaq said
team?
there's no alpha, I think.
There's no alpha, but they also said,
Shaq said the
are they
alpha.
a team?
Dwayne
Which is
Wade
just
said
wrong.
the identity thing. Dwayne Wade said the identity.
Well, no, we said the
Yeah.
alpha thing last night. When they get down, we talked about this last night. They get down against Philly. They're down double digits. You go in the locker room. Are they looking around and saying like, all right, that guy's going to lead us up there? It's not. There isn't necessarily an alpha. Sometimes somebody does, but oftentimes they don't. And they're looking around the room for who's going to be the guy who steps up. It really is a matter of, I guess, whether shots are falling a lot of the times. But there isn't that guy who's always going to be like, get up. You know, there's no cornbread here.
There's no Maxwell.
Yeah, there's no get on my back, boys. You know.
I get
And
that
again,
reference.
that was,
it.
you know, and again,
That was a
Shaq,
long time
so
ago in the
that
80s.
That was Shaq who said that. So take that, you know, however you want it. But that's, you know, Shaq's take. It's not, you know, some people listen to Shaq a lot more than other people do. So I don't know if Jaylen Brown's referencing, you know, the guys on TNT.
It has to be, yeah.
It's a national show.
Probably.
And, yeah, and it's a national show. And I mean, I know a lot of the
Perk called him out.
Watch that. What's that?
Perk called out Tatum.
Perk
Tatum
tweeted something last night about
Yeah.
Tatum. You know, he just got paid and he's playing like an underpaid player or something like that. He basically called out his energy, and I mean, I think that's something that a lot of people have noticed this year. Whether it's COVID related or not, I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but there's been you know stretches where Tatum just looks kind of out of it out there,
Yeah.
not engaged.
What he said about him was, you get paid the big bucks, a lot comes with it. I'm one of the few that's always lobbying for Tatum. He's a special talent, offensively gifted player. That being said, type of leadership role in the court, certain type of tenacity, certain type of age, certain type of swagger you have to play with. When you look at all the other stars around the league, they compete. They don't have bad body language. They're enthusiastic. They're supporting their teammates. They're always talking to their teammates. And it's part of him, I guess, growing, but you've got to have that. So again, these are maturity issues.
That was Perk?
That was Perk
Yeah.
on Tatum. Basically, like, you can't be sulky when you're missing. You can't walk to the sideline. Your teammates feed off that energy. I think that's fair. That's Tatum's personality. He has to really go through an extreme makeover to be a different person. It's going to be hard for him to be that fiery guy to get in your face, you know, slap, you know.
But
We
you
saw
know
that-
what? If he's not capable of evolving into that player, then it's on Danny Ainge to get folks in the building
To get a Butler type. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think back to those old New York Knicks teams when you had Patrick Ewing, who was clearly your best player, but you had Charles Oakley, who, if things got a little sideways, he was regulating stuff. He was going to make sure that physical, that toughness, that whatever the hell you want to call it, you needed to get through those tough times. You had somebody who was in that fight. Tatum,
Absolutely.
I don't have a problem with Tatum not ever evolving into that, because again, I want him to be authentically whoever the hell he is supposed to be. And right now, he's trending in the right direction of being one of the all-time greats, not only in Celtics history, but a Hall of Famer when you look at his numbers and the things that he can do at such an early age. And if me getting a player that will be part of his surrounding cast, who maybe isn't as talented, but has a different kind of approach and toughness and grittiness and griminess to him, hell yeah, I want that. Because that's going to make my team better and make my star player better.
I don't think
Is that possible though, Sherrod? I feel like you have to have that, right? You have to have that heart of a lion attitude, that tenacity, that rah in you a little bit, don't you? I mean, I can't think of any other significant top 10.
I think Brown does.
Minus, I don't know, Tim Duncan, I guess.
So
like, for the most part, it's rare though,
I
right?
think he does, but I don't think it's at the level that people want him to have it at. I think it's there. I just don't think it's going to come in the waves and bunches that people feel the best player on this team should have.
Part of it has to be a little bit of a show and some, you know, like you have to kind of act as if a little bit, right? Like I think certain things are easy to do. Like, for example, it's the really soft mumbling press conferences where he doesn't sound like stuff like that. Walk into the court with his shoulders slumped, the little things like that. There's some things he could do just to act a little bit more poised and just a little bit command more presence, even if he's not going to get in people's face and scream at them, because that might never be a style. But there's a lot of things about his affect, you know, that don't really scream like energy. And I think that you know, he's got to, if he just changed it up a little without it, it actually is stupid when you're a guy who's not a rah-rah guy and you start doing it. It's inauthentic. I don't know that it necessarily
and people
works.
see right through it.
And they see through it. I don't think he needs to be that. But I do wonder, when I mentioned like a Jimmy Butler type, does somebody need to just say, okay, like say you're Brown and you're every bit as talented as Tatum or could score as many points and get all that. But does it take someone like Brown saying, I'm going to change my role a tad. I'm going to be more the Jimmy Butler type. I'm going to be that guy who does a little bit of everything and tries to make other people
Tatum
better.
Needs to do,
because Tatum's not doing it. Because Tatum's real skill might simply be dead-eye scorer. So you wonder whether Brown is more equipped to take on him. I
actually think it's the opposite because Tatum gets the gravity of guys running at him, doubles, blitzes, all that stuff.
And he's a better passer. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the role he's playing on this team, top lead ball handler. And I've talked about this a million times. I thought that was one of the limiting factors for them last year was his inability to thrive as a passer from those positions. But I gave him some leeway because it was his first shot at it. Now this is round 2, and he's got to embrace that role. Like you said, that's what Butler did in Miami, just the level of gravity that the defense shows him. He can at least get it to Brown far more often. And that's what I love about this one. And the fact that they talked before this, and then you saw the backline dunk from Brown get 26 shots off of Tatum.
Yeah.
This was the formula for success. Get Brown going, get Brown a ton of shots because what did we see early this year? Brown became a better scorer than Tatum because he was so open, got such great shots, and was so aggressive off of the defense, what the defense was showing Tatum, that Brown was able to become the leading scorer in the NBA for a couple of weeks. So, I mean, that's the potential of Brown if they can get him shots. And we say this every night. Brown should almost have more shots than Tatum every single game. Like tonight, 26 to 21. That's what I want to see.
I was gonna say that's tough to ask him to do that. I mean, obviously he can do a little bit of everything for you, but Jalen's gonna want his touches in the offensive end, especially if he starts failing.
He needs them.
It's interesting.
I know because they're still young. If they were,
But we talk about how good he came out in that first quarter. What happened in the second and the third? Why did he only take 2 attempts? Did he feel so out of it because Tatum was getting too many shots, or maybe he wanted his touches and he got, we talked about it a little bit last night. That fourth quarter when he finally got back into it a bit, but that the second and third he sort of disappeared, offensively. Maybe that's a part of that conversation they had last night. Maybe this is significant. Hearing what the national media had to say about them, and of course not saying any good things after that loss against Philly.